Today begins a new Independence Weekend tradition here for the 1UP Superstar Series, the inaugural running of the American Hope 400 here, 4th of July weekend in our nation's capital. You couldn't have scripted it better than this. 94 laps around a special arena built just for this race. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I hope you'll stick around for the entire race because it'll be quite fun from start to finish. Alongside me in the booth for today's race is none other than Ryan Griffin, and well, this is a very interesting racetrack. There's passing opportunities all over the place, and you can win this race from anywhere in the starting field. So even if you had a poor qualifying effort, that doesn't mean your day is over necessarily.
You know, considering we're in DC for this event and this 4th of July weekend, does this mean we can get Bill Pullman in here to give us a little speech before the invocation? I mean,
I'm sure if we had it in the budget, I'm sure we would have made it happen. But we can now, with that being said, take a look at our 42 starters for today's American Hope 400. Sam Denoto gets his first pole of the season with a brilliant lap that puts him ahead of his teammate, Emma Carter, to make it an all-Carter Racing System front row. And Dylan Young, making only his second Superstar Series start, he qualifies third with rookie Devin Fair alongside him. Nelson Reeves rounds out the top five. But as I said, you can win this race from anywhere in the field. We saw this in the national race yesterday. We've got guys like the points leader, Cale Teskar Jr. He starts 19th. Jared Polansky, 22nd. Christian Vargas, 23rd. A lot of big names starting in the midfield. Who do you think can really surprise us from a back-to-front charge here today? With the pace car already on pit road, it leaves us in the hands of Sam Denoto and Emma Carter. Green flag is out. We're underway in our nation's capital for 94 laps, and the outside line looks to be struggling a little bit at this initial start. That allows Sam Denoto and Dylan Young to pull away from the field here.
and we got some Toyotas up there too. It could be a Toyota kind of day with the way the Toyotas are up here. But it looks like the 29 was going to make the move here to the inside, and actually is probably going to lead the first lap.
Dylan Young, in just his second career 1UP Superstar Series start, leads lap number 1 ahead of Sam Denoto by a smidgen. As Denoto goes wide, here comes Henry Thomas in car number 8, looking to lead his first laps of the season. It's been a while since this 8 car has been leading laps at the front, and it's been 76 races since Henry Thomas has been to victory lane. I'm not saying he's going to today. It's very early in this race. It's impossible to predict who the winner is going to be, but so far so good for blue number 8.
You talked about how much this track shuffles drivers. That 8 started P7, and after lap 2, he's already leading the race. So it's definitely a track where you can shuffle around positions, and the 8 has pretty much shown that. As Reeves is trying to close into him, I don't know if he's going to get to him. Looks like the 8 will continue to lead. Looks like the 29 got a little high back there.
Yep.
And high against the wall. I don't know if he got against the wall, but
yeah, that is going to cost him a few positions here. It's going to cost him a few positions, and now Emma Carter starting to make her way back to the front. She started second, dropped up back to 5th, now working back up to 3rd. But right now, it is Thomas and Reeves with a pretty handy lead as we start lap number 5. Reeves now making a move on the inside for the race lead on Henry Thomas. Reeves has not won a race at all in his Superstar Series career. He is today going to be the day for the number 17 to finally score big.
Let's see, he makes kind of an easy pass there, the 8, once he did get around, and does pull about a car length or 2 ahead of him, as now the 70 of Carter coming back to the inside of the 8. Looks like she's going to retake 2nd here off turn 2.
And they dive it off of turn 2 with Reeves ahead of Carter now by a few car lengths. Henry Thomas slips back to 3rd. Mark Davey started 11th in this race. He's already made his way up to the 4th spot. And Bobo Jones, he started 9th. He currently rounds out the top 5. But Mark Davies made a good charge through from the midfield to the front of the pack. But our focus now is on the battle for the lead, where Nelson Reeves may lose it in a few moments to Emma Carter here.
70 goes to the inside of the 17. You actually kind of, much of it I already had noticed, which was that orange 01 coming through the field. Again, like I said, with the 8, the shuffle that this track has, it took me a minute to realize that this was the track where we were, but yeah, I'm familiar with this track, and yeah, it definitely can provide some shuffle racing, is Carter is going to maintain the point here. Reeves looks like Trent is going to hang out a second, but that only one. Start 11th up to third now.
And remember, this is our second crown jewel race of the season. Who won our first? It was Mark Davey in that 01. He won the Pensacola 500 back in March for his first career win and just his second career start. He is now well in the midst of his rookie campaign in the 1-Up Superstar Series, and he's making a move on Nelson Reeves right now to move up into the second position. So Mark Davies got a really fast car under him. Could the Australian spoil the American fun here in Washington, D.C.?
Looks like he's definitely... The big thing is he's got a car that can pass right now. I mean, to come from 11th to now second, he's basically gaining just about a position a lap, it seems, as we're on lap 10, and now Reeves looks like he's going to try to look back inside, but Davey able to clear him off the corner and maintain that second position.
So right now, the top three are single file. We got a side-by-side battle for fourth between Jones and Denoto. Looks like, we're not going to be able to see it for a moment, but it looks like they're still going to be side-by-side going into turn one. And Mark Davey has cut down the gap that Emma Carter had. So, now Carter still leads this race in car number 70. It's been a while since she's been to victory lane. Since last year at Watkins Glen, as a matter of fact. But Mark Davey, looking for his second win of the season, to be the leading rookie in the win count. And, man, just to imagine, we have two rookies in the playoff picture already, about a third of the way through the season. I don't know if any of us would have predicted that when the green flag dropped to Pensacola to start the season, as Davey now makes a move for the lead.
Well, it's interesting, Davey, that he was strong on a track where you gotta, the shuffle nature of Pensacola, and then you come here, which is another track that uses or has the shuffle nature, and it took him basically almost, as I said, about a positional lap to get to the lead, but here he is, and now Reeves looking back on Carter for second. I think Reeves might get her down here in 3 and 4, we'll have to see, but yeah, Davey just trying to pick up from where he did at Pensacola and show that he is the best at coming through the field in this sort of style of racing.
He led the most laps in the Pensacola 500, 22 of them as a matter of fact, which is unheard of at a super speedway like Pensacola. Can he lead the most laps here today and score his second crown jewel win in as many attempts? He's currently got about a half-second lead over Nelson Reeves and Emma Carter, but creeping into the picture as well, Sam Denoto, the pole sitter, and Stephen Hunter, the 2020 Series champion. Hunter started this race in the 8th spot. He currently runs 4th now after making the pass on Sam Denoto. This 51 is also very good at these shuffle races. He's got a Daytona win under his belt, and which was actually his first career win in the Superstar Series. So he knows how to make these races happen as well. Wouldn't surprise me at all to see this 51 challenging for the win later.
At the front here, looks like Carter is going to come back on Reeves again. These two are going to be very familiar with each other throughout the day as far as racing each other, it seems, because this is they're battling now again for a position. So Reeves and Carter get pretty familiar with each other, racing each other, but it looks like Reeves is going to maintain it over Carter. I know I think Hunter did just get around the 00. I'm not sure if the 00 is coming back on him or not. And
oh, yes, he is.
There's that red and white, number 92. Jeffrey Finn guy now up in here, as well as, I can't see there we go, I can see the other two. It looks like the 35, and then Hutchinson in the 10 is there in 8. So we got basically 7 cars here. Davies kind of checked out to a little bit of a lead here, so really the fight is basically from 2nd back to 8th.
And while Mark Davey in a Ford leads 4 Toyotas battling for the 2nd position, bookended by another Ford of Jeffrey Finn guy. Matter of fact, the entire top 10 currently made up of Fords and Toyotas. No Chevrolets, no Dodges in sight right now. So the Fords and the Toyotas really have a package built for this weekend, and they're making the most of it. They fill the entire top 10 spots as Carter and Hunter now set off after Mark Davey, who's about 6/10 up the road.
And here comes that 51 Hunter. He's up to 3rd, now trying to see if he can stay on the back bumper of Carter here. Maybe a little drafting, see if they can run up to Davey, but I mean, ever since Davey got this lead, he's kind of just been able to maintain it and maintain a little bit of a gap. Now that gap is slowly beginning to close, as it seems like Carter and I'm blanking here, Hunter, trying to draft, seems like tandem draft to try to catch back up to the 01. And
they closed
I
by
mean, basically,
about.
it's just a waiting game to see if they can gain enough to him to get in his weight, to get in his draft.
Yeah, they gained 2/10 on the previous lap, 2/100 on this past one. So they're steadily gaining ground on the 01, and we're closing in on about halfway through a fuel run here. We will see green flag pit stops unless we get a yellow flag like we saw in the Nitro National Series again and again and again. But right now, we've been caution-free for the first 21 laps, and Mark Davey has led most of them, but sadly, we do have to report our first retirement of this race, and it is the 42 of Justin Henley, whose engine let go on the 42 Chevrolet. It's unfortunate to see for him, but we'll see him again next week at Portland, trying to get all 4 of his cars into the field. Only 2 of them made it this time around, but now it's up to Chase Chris to lead the HBR brigade for the rest of the race.
I didn't know this until I just kind of glanced and realized it. That's 2 Toyotas trying to run down a Ford. So maybe it was kind of like Hunter realized, hey, this is a fellow Toyota in front of me. Maybe we can hook up together and run down the leader. And they definitely have reeled in Davey. It's just going to be a matter of whether or not either him or Carter are able to do anything with Davey at this point.
And they've checked out on Sam Donotto and Stephen Gale in 5th. They are about a second ahead of those 2. So now it looks to be a 3-car battle for the lead between Davey's Ford and Carter and Hunter, both in Toyotas. It's going to be a 3-car battle amongst them, at least for a while, because I don't see Donotto or Gale closing in on them at this point in time. We're about a quarter of the way through this race now, and Mark Davey has led most of the way. We still have a set of pit stops to make, and the tires will fall off here quite a bit, to the tune of about 2.5 seconds. So, if you can get a pit stop in before your rivals do, that could be a big key in winning this race, or losing it.
We've seen it a couple times this year that pit road can be a huge deciding factor in these races. And I mean, honestly, there's only been, at least since I've been in the booth, at least one dominating win that I've seen this season, and that was Hutchinson at Kansas. But you know, we'll see what happens here. And Carter and Hunter have been able to stay with Davey. Davey hasn't been able to pull away from them. But these 3 have kind of got a little gap over 4. We'll see whether or not they can just kind of, if they can stay together and ride where they're at, and just kind of keep the gap they have until the pit stop. You know, try to spread out the field. When you make your pit stop, it makes it a little easier not having somebody all over you. But you got to make sure you have possibly a drafting partner if you're trying to catch a car in front of you. It could help you in the end.
And unless I'm mistaken, it looks like Carter and Davey have started to drop Stephen Hunter. He's now 0.8 of a second behind the 01, and starting to become a 2-car battle because Hunter is starting to lose touch. It could be that he's conserving his stuff, maybe holding out for a yellow, or maybe even just saving his stuff to charge back at them later. But if I were to 51, I'd want to stay right up with the 01 and the 70, just in case something happens to change the complexion of this race. It's not out of the question. We've seen it happen before.
I think they might have heard you there, because it looks like I could see that the 70 has dropped off the 01 just a little bit. I'm wondering again, I mentioned they're both Toyotas. Could there be a manufacturer play between the 2 of them to see if the 2 of them could work together to catch the Ford? So I think as soon as maybe the 70 team realized that the 51 was falling off, they're like, okay, let's drop back with him. Maybe we'll pick up his draft and try to get back up to the 01 again. So
yeah, well, you would think if that was the case, they would have picked up Donotto, Gale, Reeves, and Cale Tescar Jr. and Aaron Hall running 4th through 8th. That strength in numbers is key here. You'd have 7 Toyotas lined up behind 1 Ford, and you'd think 7 would be better than 2 in the case of trying to get around the 01.
It could be a matter, too, of who was around at the time and who was within striking distance, because this is experience as a driver coming into play, that yeah, you want numbers. The numbers is usually in your favor, but if you can't necessarily get the numbers together that quickly, you're just going to go with what you have. And I think they could have just gone with what they had. But yeah, they're sitting in a comfortable position. Again, they're less than a half a second behind Davey. Use 3 cars basically under a blanket, less about 3/10 of a second. We'll check it this time by. It's probably going to be about 3/10 again between these top 3, and then a good significant gap back to the 00, who's a second and a half off the lead. It's just a matter of you just want to stay in that car in front of his draft. As long as you're in that draft, you can suck right back up to them. And as we see from Carter able to suck right up to the back of Davey. You just got to get close enough. And I think that's what happened to Hunter. He was laying it back just far enough for the 70. That's why he fell off. Once he got the 70 back to him where he could suck off the 70's draft, he hasn't fallen back since. I mean, he's hanging right there. Still a little bit back at the 70, so I don't know if the 51 is as strong as the 70 is at keeping the suck up on the car in front of him. And that could be a problem maybe later in the race. Maybe they can work on the pit stop and make a little adjustment for that. But Dayton continues to lead here. We have, 34 in.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and
on to 35.
I must note, Stephen Hunter, a former series champion and an 8-time winner in the Superstar Series, through a third of the season has not gone to victory lane yet this season. Could this be a slump for the 51, or could we see Hunter charge back up and take a big win in DC? Because Hunter is now on a 15-race winless streak, the longest of his career. So it's not. I don't know if it's time to press the panic button just yet, because he's still in the playoffs, but only barely, as a matter of fact. Oh, as Carter goes wide, trying to make a move on Davey. That's going to cost her a lot of time, and it might even cost her second place to Stephen Hunter right here.
Yeah, well, to bring out your point as we get to battle for a second, it looks like Hunter is just going to easily go around Carter here, but to your point about Hunter, it's not like we haven't seen him be competitive. I mean, in my honest opinion, he probably should have won Bristol this year, and just late race stuff happened, and sometimes it's a matter of all you can do is just put yourself in a position, and things will happen to either help you or hinder you. And it's not like that team hasn't been in position this year to win races. They just things don't go your way, and all you can keep doing is just keep putting yourself in a position, and then when it happens, it happens. It's just for Hunter, it's taken longer this year than years past for him. So.
And considering we got a few road courses coming up in the next coming weeks, Hunter's always been good at those. We got Portland next week. We got Watkins Glen coming up in a little while. Montreal. Those are all places where if Stephen Hunter gets a good position, he can absolutely go and win those races. So I would not be pressing the panic button yet on Stephen Hunter, but with a third of the season in the books and no wins, Hunter's just got to be thinking what he can do better to try and put that 51 in victory lane.
Honestly, he can. What he's doing right now is probably the best thing he needs to do. Just run up front. You run up front, you basically put yourself in a position. From that point forward, you just need a little luck to go your way. And right now he's having a pretty solid day today. Running second right now. He's about half a second off of Davey. Unfortunately, though, for these top 3, they have no drafting help. There's nobody really. They really aren't close enough to each other to really help each other, and they kind of got spread out. But at the same time, the cars behind them have not really taken advantage of this. Davey's lead over 4th place is still about almost 2 seconds, and it's just kind of spread out at this point as we near the halfway point.
And we're about 15 laps away from expected pit stops, and once those happen, expect everybody to pit around the same time. But it is who will get on pit road first and trigger all the stops from everybody else that'll really set the tone for how the rest of this race will shape out. Because if, say, a Cale Tesco Jr., an Aaron Hall, Justin Hutchinson, if one of them were to pit first before anybody else comes in, because they can easily make this race on one stop. If they were to pit early, for example, pit at, say, lap 48 to 50, they might be able to get out ahead of Mark Davey, Stephen Hunter, Emma Carter, and the rest. But will that cost them in the long run if we don't get a yellow flag between now and the end of the race?
Yeah, well, at this point, it's just kind of a holding game. Right? At this point, they're just trying to ride and get to where we can make that green flag pit stop. And as we get closer to the halfway point and closer beyond that point where the window opens, they're just right at this point. Again, you're just trying to conserve yourself. You're trying to conserve your stuff and not take yourself out of it at this point. And right now, Hunter is kind of falling back a little bit to the 70 a car. Again, I go back to wondering if these two. It'd be interesting to get a hold of a post race and find out if there was anything between the two of them as far as working together, because it almost seems like that. And Hunter now trying to reel back in Davey just a little bit. It looks like he's going to cut it down to maybe 2/10 this time, maybe 3/10, 3/10, no 2/10. But the 01, ever since he got that lead, continues to lead this race, and so far it appears to be the best car out here.
Yeah, Mark Davey has led over 30 laps of this race. This is the most he has ever led in a 1-Up Superstar Series event. So no matter what happens from here on out, this will be a very good day for that 01 team. And put things into perspective, this team last year was absolutely struggling to find pace with Ricky Freeman Jr. behind the wheel. They were running in the 20s every race and only had signs of promise on the super speedways. So to run up front consistently with Mark Davey leading all these laps, running in the top 5 in points as things stand right now, that has got to be a huge boost for that 0-1 team of Finish Line Motorsports, because now, instead of only having 2 cars in Hutchinson and Ortiz that run up front consistently week in and week out, now they got 3 cars doing that, and maybe with a little investment into their 19 team, they might have all 4 of them up there before long.
To go back to the 01 real quick, I've always said that, this coming from a driver's perspective, you want to start out the season as best as you can. And for Davey, he started the season out easily the best way you can, and that's you win the first race. And honestly, it seems like they've just built on the momentum from that first race to just kind of stay not superb, not spectacular, but stay consistent enough that, as you said, they're top 5 in points right now. They're dominating this race so far. So it's clear there's speed in that 01. It's just you want to keep momentum. You always want to have a forward momentum swing. You don't want to have a. What I'm trying to say is, if you have a bad day or a bad race, you don't want to come in the next week and run bad. You want to come in and run good, just as a way to say no, that was just a fluke. We just had a bad week. And there's teams that can do that, and there's teams that can't do that. And then we've seen out of the 01, especially the 51, which from the races that I've been in has run fairly well.
And honestly, I cannot think of a time when the 01 had a particularly bad day. I can think back to Atlanta where he had a crash. I can think back to, believe it was earlier in the season, he didn't have the best of runs, but he hasn't had a particularly horrible day where they were just truly off the pace. So, all things considered, Mark Davies had a pretty solid season, a very good rookie campaign for this number 50, for the number 01, and honestly, at the rate he's going, he could be even a championship dark horse at this point. You never know. Even once this race is over, we'll still have 18 races to go in the whole season, 8 until the playoffs begin.
The key to winning any championship, or the key to have any, good season, is to minimize your bad days, or to minimize how bad a day is because of something happening to you, whether it's a wreck, mechanical, or something. You try to gain as much as you can out of a bad day, basically, and then you come into a week where you have, like Davey has right now, he qualified P11, which you wouldn't think, P11, but on a track like this, he definitely has a car. He came from 11th on the grid to where he is now, and basically has basically been in the lead since that point, and really hasn't, other than maybe having Carter to his bumper for a little bit, really hasn't had a challenge since he's got the lead. So right now, if you saw one team, the crew, especially the pit crew, you're just going through the motions, knowing, okay, we need a good, solid stop when we do stop. And
Speaking of the pit
not
crews,
make
it's their
mistakes.
speaking of the pit crews, it is their time to shine. Pit stops underway here at the DC Arena, and we have Mark Davies, Stephen Hunter, Emma Carter, and everybody else hitting pit road. I was about to say before these guys came in, I believe that a few cars actually got an undercut off, and we'll find out who those are in a moment. But here comes the money stop for everybody on track. And Davies getting held up a little bit by Cale Tescar Jr. A little bit of contact between he and Stephen Hunter.
Yeah, with a real contact between him and Hunter. But I was going to say that contact may hurt Hunter more than Davey, because that was nose hit for Hunter and a tail hit for Davey. So I don't know if that's going to be that bad a hit for Davey.
This pit road is plenty wide enough, but they don't use much of it. But oh, that was very close. Hunter, even with that little slight collision, could have taken the lead off of Davey, but I don't think either one of them is going to be leading this race, because we had a few cars pit a lap prior to all these guys coming in, and we're about to find out right here. Yes, Stephen Gale, he pitted from a lap early from 5th spot, and he's going to take the lead of this race. We talked about an Australian spoiling the fun on 4th of July weekend. Could it be a Canadian now, with Stephen Gale taking the lead for the first time all afternoon?
It's interesting. The story of the day, basically, we've seen with the other one. Mentioned the Toyotas. Well, we exchanged it up with Toyotas now from this 35. And again, as I said, it's about just putting yourself in position to get through a solid pit stop. And evidently, this was planned by a couple of these guys to pit a lap before. Has definitely shuffled this front running order at least a little bit.
And I hate to report, we saw Jake McMillan enter the pits with the race leaders a few laps ago. He has not left yet. Seems to be a serious issue with the 21 car. We'll update you on that. We expect him to get back on the racetrack, but he will fall several laps off the lead. But here's something we haven't talked about much all race long, and that is lap traffic. With the field being spread out by pit stops, now we're going to see some lap cars enter the fray, and that could really spice things up, especially if Stephen Gale gets held up for much longer. Because I think that Davey and Hunter, they're paired up together once again. I believe they're going to be able to chase him down pretty quickly.
And what's going to be interesting here, too, is that we've seen Davey basically at the front since he got the lead. Can he do what he did on the initial start of the race and drive back up to the lead as he did on the, from the start?
Yeah, so far it looks like he can.
Right now he gained 3/10 that last lap, and it also does help that he has Hunter kind of working with him and not against him in retrospect, that he's, a drafting partner and not trying to pass him. So that also helps to some extent.
Yeah, and the gap went down another 2/10 on that lap. So Mark Davies reeling in Stephen Gale at a very fast rate. Stephen Gale, it has been a while since he's been in the victory lane as well. Stephen Gale, it has been 64 races since Stephen Gale last went to victory lane back in 2020. He has the second longest winless streak of any active driver, second only to Henry Thomas's 76. But Stephen Gale's hopes of winning here all rely on how much he can block Mark Davey, and I just don't know if he can do it, because those tires are a lap older and he doesn't have the horsepower that Mark Davey has. This could be a setup.
I don't think it's necessarily tires. I just think that 01 car has just definitely been the best car today, and Davey's showing it again. I said he came from 11th on the grid to the lead, and now he's trying to come back after that pit stop and retake the point, as he's going to look into 1 and 2, and maybe this lap that he retakes it.
Side by side with Gale heading into turn 3, and we got a few lap cars up there as well, but I don't think they're going to get to those guys by the time that Mark Davey retakes the lead, and he clears Stephen Gale to retake the lead. Coming to 30 laps to go. Mark Davey back to the point. Stephen Gale sandwiches himself in between Davey and Hunter in their battle, but I fully expect Stephen Hunter to get around the 35 as well, because at this point, Gale's just a sitting duck to all the cars around him. Although, Hunter has not had the car Davey has. So if Stephen Gale can hold off Hunter for a while, that could be a net gain of 3 spots for him.
Yeah, he might be able to get this position here. Be able to hold off Hunter. You know, Hunter. We've also seen Hunter too kind of help the de facto Ford or Toyota partner he's had to try to catch the leader. But at this point, the 35 I think is just holding up the 51. But Hunter not able to get around him either.
I do also have to report we had 2 more DNFs since I last brought up our first one. Chase Christ in the 44. I mentioned he was the lone hope for Henley Bemidji Racing this weekend after his team owner blew an engine. He too has also blown an engine. So no, the Henley Bemidji Racing cars will finish last in this race. It's a tough sight to see, but we'll see them again in Portland. And our pole sitter, Sam Donato, his miserable season continues with an engine failure. That is just heartbreaking to see. He was having such a strong run from pole position. He was running in the top 10 pretty much all day, and he will be resigned to a 40th place finish at the end of this one. It's not looking good for Sam Donato, but we're going to some road courses, and he's pretty good at those as well, so you never know what he'll be able to do, but tough break for the 00 as Mark Davey now catches some lap traffic. And as Mark Davey catches this lap traffic, it is going to be the key thing here is how quickly he disperses of this lap traffic, because he's already cleared Echo Ross, he's cleared Daniel Voiles now, and now he's got and Devin Fair and Ben McDonald are coming up ahead of them. They must have had slow pit stops. But the thing for these guys now, Hunter and Gale and Tescar Jr., they've got to clear these lap cars just as quickly if they're going to have any hope of holding on to win this race.
Yeah, and the key thing right now is the laps are winding down too. So as the laps wind down, Hunter, that's less time he has to, once he catch Davey, to try to work around him. So he's got to try to catch him. And at this point, again, there's still 24 laps to go, and anything can happen in 24 laps. At this point, I think Davey's just on cruise control at this point. He's just trying to be careful, don't tear up the car going around these lap cars, and just be nice and smooth at this point, and he could be looking at his second win of this season.
He's got to get around Devin Fair to make it happen. He's already cleared Ben McDonald. Davey starts to move up to the high side to try and see if he can't generate some momentum up there, but I think that's actually not what he wants to. He doesn't want to be up there, that's for sure, as he gets around Devin Fair and Daniel Voiles, Devin Fair's teammate. The Team Dayspring cars now going side by side. They're both a lap down now. But this is very interesting to see the two teammates battling it out behind the leader, Mark Davey, as Stephen Hunter now has to negotiate his way around both of them. So as Hunter starts to close in on JV, and yeah, this race is starting to wrap itself around the fact that lap traffic is going to be a factor for the rest of the race. We've seen this happen in many races before. The key now is for Stephen Hunter, and I think it's going to be just Stephen Hunter challenging for the race win at this point, because Stephen Gale's fallen about a second and a half behind. So it's up to Hunter now to try and chase down Davey, but he's got to get around Daniel Voiles to make it happen. And Voiles is proving to be a very difficult car to pass.
Yeah, Hunter is just... Part of the problem is I think he just doesn't have a strong car as Davey does, and, the lap traffic is not really helping that, but all you can do is do the best you're doing, and that's what Hunter's trying to do. He's putting the effort out there, which, you would expect a champion like Hunter to give it everything he has, even though you may not have the best car in this thing. He's still going to put everything on the line to see if he can try to get Davey for it, but...
And I don't know
what's
if you
the point
saw...
of going this race?
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw that huge pack of lap cars directly ahead of Mark Davey, but if he gets held up by those guys, that could allow Hunter to sneak up. But you can see Daniel Voiles has repassed Stephen Hunter, and now the 51 is a second and a third behind Mark Davey. So Hunter could have used up his stuff trying to get around the 64, and now he's just losing time. He lost 2/10 on that last lap alone. This could be Mark Davies' time to just settle into a rhythm and click laps away until the checkered flag flies.
So laps wind down. We're coming basically to 17 to go. And yeah, Davey is just, he's basically on cruise control. He's got about a second and a half up on Hunter. And it's really going to be this, I don't even think the lap traffic, honestly, is going to make a difference with Davey at this point. He just needs to run where he's at, just stay smooth, and he could be looking at his second career win.
Yeah, he's got to navigate a few lap cars on the way, and we're running out of laps, which is just exactly what Mark Davey wants to see as he comes up to lap his alliance partner Jeff Bolton in the 38, and just ahead of them, Anderson Reed, Jason Parker ahead, but Mark Davey is just gaining more and more time on Stephen Hunter. The gap is now 1.9 seconds, so I think I'm right in my assessment that Stephen Hunter used up his stuff trying to get around the lap cars, and that's going to be what probably cost him this race win. Unless Mark Davey runs into some sort of problem. We've had this happen before, but barring an issue for the leader right now, yeah, there's Stephen Hunter. He's actually lost time even to Daniel Voiles, and he's fallen 2.5 seconds behind Mark Davey, who's now lapped Jason Parker in the 76.
Yeah, at this point, Davey, if you're Davey in this 01, you're just trying to be careful around the lap cars. You know you have a significant gap. So unless, barring a caution, barring something happened to that 01 car, he's pretty much got this race on lockdown. Now, Hunter, on the other hand, Hunter's probably a bit frustrated at this point because there was at one point in this race he was close enough to Davey to basically reach out and touch him. He just, the pit stop, they were okay, and then he got the 35 in front of him that kind of really held him up, and then he's just really not been able to negotiate the lap traffic as Davey has. So it's just you feel bad for Hunter, but again, decent run for that team. Again, you can't fault them for not winning races, but it is kind of shocking that they haven't won, but it's not like they haven't been in position to.
And Stephen Hunter just continues to lose time at this point. We're coming to 11 laps to go at the line. Here's Hunter. He's fallen well off the pace. He's 2.7 seconds off the lead now. It's going to take a miracle for him. We've seen this. We've seen miracles happen to some drivers, but it's just not been Stephen Hunter's year so far. There's still plenty of time to turn that around, but it's just getting to the point where something has to happen. So we're going to come to 10 laps to go at next time by. Mark Davey is trying to get around Anderson Reed, but the 15 is proving to be quite the roadblock. But even though Reed has been holding up Davey for the last few laps, and it looks like Davey will be able to get by the 15 here, they're still gaining time on Stephen Hunter, who's just falling further and further behind. You see, the gap was 2.8 before, and it remains there now. But I just believe Hunter has used up his equipment, and he's getting a bit frustrated with the lap cars, and that's never the mindset you want to be in. And all these things and more are contributing to what will likely be a Mark Davey win.
Yeah, the other interesting thing is too I'm sorry, mine's checking here for and I don't know what to say anymore, but I don't want to jinx Davey when I say this, but there has only been one driver this season that actually that hasn't that I haven't jinxed that has had a dominant day. So hopefully we can go 2 for 2 in the last 2 races that I've been in the booth, which was Hutchinson at Kansas and hopefully Davey today.
They've both been
now in the less than
yeah.
Coming to basically 7 to go.
Yeah, they've both been in Finish Line Motorsports Fords. Maybe that's the key to not jinxing anybody.
Yeah, maybe that's the key.
Yeah, but we're coming to we're closing in on the end of this race, and now Stephen Hunter's fallen back to 3.3 seconds behind. I think now it's just starting to go away for him at this point. Yeah, he's fallen really far back. He's losing half a second a lap now to Mark Davey. I think the 01 has just settled into a rhythm. He knows he's not going to be challenged for the win by anyone behind him. And he sees that his teammate, Blair in the 19, she's the next one to be lapped. And he knows she will not pose a big challenge to him in him trying to lap her. So, at this point, you're just comfortably cruising. And we've come to a point in time in the race now where a yellow flag would end it. So, you don't have to worry about that much anymore. So now, it's just a matter of can the car hold together for these final 5 laps.
Yeah, and Davey at this point, his crew is just telling him, just keep doing what you've been doing. This car has been dynamite for him all day. He there's only two points in this race he has not led, from the initial start and through the pit stop cycle where the 35 was able to get out, come in a lap early, get tired, and have a little position on that he had to come back from. But other than that, this has pretty much been Mark Davies' race, and at this point they're just riding smooth, trying to be careful, trying to be easy with the lap cars, even though he pretty much has the best car here, so getting around the lap cars isn't going to be that much of a problem, but you just don't want to do anything to detriment yourself even further. And poor Stephen Hunter, he just continues to lose time. He's down almost 5 seconds. It's 4.4 at the moment, but it would shock me if it's like almost 4.7 seconds by the end of this race with 3 to go here.
We'll see what the gap is at the line. It's now 4.5 seconds, and with 3 laps to go, you're not going to be able to make that up in 2.5 laps. So I think Hunter now has just got to worry about the 35 and the 02 behind him, because at this point, Mark Davies coming to 2 laps to go, and there is no one in his mirror he needs to worry about.
He's going to bring it nice and smooth, and talk about a guy that knows how to win crown jewels this season, apparently. I mean, he won Pensacola, and he's basically a lap and a half away here from winning the 2nd crown jewel. And, they say that about drivers. You step up when something's on the line, and he's had something on the line in these 2 races, and he's definitely showed it, as he'll see the white flag this time.
White flag in the air, 1 more lap to go from Washington, D.C., and Mark Davies about to spoil the American Classic by waving the Australian flag home as he rounds 3 and 4 for the final time. He sure knows how to win big races as he comes through 3 and 4 for the final time. Mark Davies gets his 2nd crown jewel in as many tries, and he wins the American Hope 400 in a dominating performance in which he has led over 3/4 of this race. A very deserved win for Mark Davies. Stephen Hunter, 4.9 seconds at the flag was the gap. He will have to settle for 2nd. Stephen Gale gets his first top 5 of the season in 3rd ahead of Cale Tescar Jr., who keeps his points lead. Emma Carter rounds out the top 5 after some promise early on. J.Q. Halleck, a very, very much needed run for this 4 team to come home 6th. Justin Hutchinson 7th. Jared Polansky actually snatched the fastest lap away from Mark Davies to come home 8th. Ahead of Nelson Reeves 9th. Diego Yepes rounds out the top 10. We used to call Mark Davies a road course king because of his 3 road course wins in the Nitro National Series. We might have to start calling him the Crown Jewel King now. With half our Crown Jewels down and only 2 more to go, he's won both of them so far. So with that being said, we've had quite the eventful day here in Washington, D.C. Probably not from the competitor standpoint with Mark Davies dominating the race the way he did, but that is an incredible showing from that 01 team. And guess what? Next week, we're headed to a road course. That's his original bread and butter, and I'm sure he'll be plenty happy to head over to Portland next week.
Yeah, you kind of feel for him finishing as, far off the lead as he was, but yeah, if he's going to his bread and butter, this is going to be fun in the coming week to see if he can, maybe he'll break the winless drought. Maybe he'll break the winless drought in the next couple of weeks. We'll have to see.
With 2 of our best road racers finishing 1-2 in this race, this sets the stage for a big rematch here out in Portland next week. We're heading out to the Pacific Northwest, Portland International Raceway next week. We hope you'll join us for that, because that is going to be a thrilling showdown if these two go head-to-head once again. I'm sure you're going to enjoy what's out to come out in Oregon. So, from Ryan Griffin and from myself as well, we say goodbye from the heart of America, Washington, D.C. Stadium. And we say congratulations to Mark Davey, gets his second Crown Jewel win, the second win of his career, his second win of the season. He does it in dominating fashion. Can anyone stop this 01 in the big marquee events?